All right, why don't we go ahead and get started, Rylan? So thank you guys all for coming. I said I think we got 2 more nights of livestock judging. Groups are getting smaller, but kids are getting wound up more and more activities. We are recording for those that are joining us in the recording. So thank you for coming if you're recording or those that are live. We have tonight is judging breeding swine, and then next week is our last one, and we'll be doing judging breeding sheep and goats. So excited for the last two. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Rylan.
All right. So we're gonna rock and roll right on into things. Something that we're gonna do a little bit differently tonight, because I think we'll have a little bit of time. I had a little bit of extra time last week, and I know Brian mentioned he told me earlier that I could cut it short, but we'll be able to rock and roll through. It'll be no problem. But I'm gonna go ahead and introduce the idea of performance data, which is EPDs or expected progeny differences. Okay, and so a lot of the time we use that with our heifers and with our hogs a lot of the time. So it's different stuff, and we'll kind of break that down a little bit later on. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up about that. So rock and rolling here. So again, we're going to use our chat box feature like we have previously. We're going to kill it. So diving right in here with breeding gilts. Okay, first and foremost, remember, these girls, last week you talked about our heifers. Most of the time our heifers are going to be out on, kind of a lot setting, or they're going to be out on pasture, walking through hills and whatnot. So structure super duper important. Okay. Same thing applies today. Structure again is going to be really, really important, but for different reasons. Okay. So with breeding females with hogs, we're going to be talking about some gilts that are going to usually be in kind of a confinement type setting. Okay, so we're a lot of time we're going to kind of be under the assumption, okay, a lot of these girls are going to be, on concrete most of their life. Okay, concrete are kind of a harder dirt surface. All right, so it's kind of what we're going to function under. So again, structure super, super important. Okay, and then jump there into the chat box. What else is super important in a breeding animal? In a breeding animal. Right? Structure. And again, when we talk structure, we're talking about how they're built with their skeleton. So how their legs come together, how they hit the ground, how their skeleton is put together. What else is important in breeding animals? Anything else?
This
Come
is
on.
a quiet group tonight. What's going on, guys?
I
Put some stuff
know.
in the chat.
So we've got structure, super important. Condition, good. That's exactly right. Volume, good. Good, good. Perfect. So we got some things rolling, okay? Remember, don't be afraid to get in the chat box here, guys. You're going to be all good. So, exactly right. Structure is the number one thing. That's super duper important. We got to have them built right, because not only are they going to have to last a long time, but these girls are going to pass on those traits to their offspring. So we want their offspring, their piglets, to also be really well built and good structure, okay? Folks talked about condition and volume. Absolutely. Now remember, with market hogs, we actually wanted them to be a little bit leaner. It wasn't like cattle where you have to have them finished out. All right. Now, with gilts, a little bit different. So we're going to have some volume there and some condition. We're going to kind of put them together. So we talk about their rib and body capacity. Okay. So then them being really deep and soft ribbed. Okay. Having a lot of curvature and a lot of turn there to the top part of their rib shape. Okay. Basically want to have some bellies on them, because again, they're going to have to take in nutrients and take in feed, and then be able to convert that into nutrients and milk for their offspring, okay, for all their little piglets, as well as keep their own body condition. Because I can tell you right now, I've raised a couple litters of pigs. Those sows go through a lot. Okay, having anywhere from 8 to 12, 14 babies. It's a lot of pigs to feed. Okay, so their bodies go through a lot, so we got to make sure we have that. And then lastly, always remember they need to look like a lady. All right, got to have plenty of structure, really solid build, lots of soft, easy rib shape. It's got some curvature and some shape to it, and then making sure, you know, they're feminine and everything else. All right, so let's dive right into some girls here. So we're gonna share my screen. Okay. And we're gonna start off with some Hampshire gilts. Okay, so if you have not, go ahead and set up your paper or your notebook or what you're working with kind of your notes taken sheet. Okay, we've been over that a lot. So I'm kind of assuming you guys have kind of a pretty good feel for that. But again, put the class name at the top, and then you're gonna roll into, you know, writing down 1, 2, 3, 4, because you got some notes on these girls, and rocking and rolling with it. Okay. So here we go. Hampshire gilts. All right, now hopping on there into the chat box again. Tell me, what do Hampshire gilts look like? What color are they? What color are the Hampshire gilts?
Rylan, are we supposed to be seeing them?
The pigs?
Yeah.
Nope, it should just say Hampshire gilts right now.
Okay.
Yep. You're good. You're good. Absolutely right, Olivia. Right. So they're black and white. Okay. Very good. So they're going to be black with a white belt going up around their shoulders. Okay. Very important. So that's what we're going to be looking at right now. Okay. Black. So they got a black head, black body, with a white belt. So they look like kind of like an Oreo. Okay. Here we go. This is our first pig. All right. So first thing I'm going to notice when I look at her, okay, I want to see a really level, really well-built one, okay? So look down her top. Looks like she's got a really nice, long, level top. Okay, I like that about her. Looking here in her legs. Now, with cattle, remember, we had a couple that just looked a little bit too posty or a little bit too straight, okay? So with pigs, we want to kind of have like a slight C shape, okay? Kind of just a little bit of a curve there. Not immense amount, because we don't want to be like, you know, having their knees knock way into them, but have a little bit of slight curvature there. So this girl, for me, she's got a good solid curve, maybe a little much, but she's got some flexibility. So to me, you get this girl out of the move, she's going to be able to move and got some big, long, flexible stride. All right. Looking good, looking solid there. Okay, got some good structure in her build. Talking about her rib and her capacity. All right, that's a really, really deep ribbed one. Okay, she looks solid. She's got some big rib here. Okay, looks like she could be a little bit cleaner there through her front. Okay, gets a little bit chuffy there. But looks like she's got some width to her up high. Got some muscle there as well, which, you know, that's not as the most important because we're talking about females, but it is something that we can definitely say, you know, she's got to be wide enough to be able to have those piglets. Okay. So for me, yeah, I think this one's got some good pieces. She's level. She's got a good build. Her structure is almost maybe a little bit too loose here, as far as her legs go and how they come to the ground. But overall, I think a solid pig. So again, be starting to take some notes, and those are some ones I would definitely note. Looks like she's got a good build. Got some body, some depth of body. Maybe gets a little bit chuffier fronted, so that means she's maybe got a little too much fat there up in her front. But overall, I think she's got some good things going. In my mind, this one's solid. Okay. From what I can tell, haven't seen in everybody else, this one I would say is solid. All right. Okay, here we go. Next girl. Okay. This is different. This girl is definitely, we talked about with our cattle being high performing. This is a girl with some performance. Okay. This is a big girl. And I mean that in a good way. All right. This is a really big outline, really tall shouldered, really well built one. You look at her, she's really long, really leveled on her top. Okay. We talked about one of those heifers last week, having a little bit of give there into her top. That's okay. All right. I'm okay with the looser spine. Okay. Looking at how she comes at the ground. Well, first off, something I'm noticing before I even look at her structure, she's got enormous legs. And I like that. Okay. A big, stout footed female, not a bad thing. Okay. Because that usually means she's going to have some good traits to pass on really muscular, really stout made offspring. So looking at her here, She comes at the ground, and we talked about that last one being a little bit too much curve. This one for me is just right. Okay. And part of that curvature on her is also the amount of muscle that she's carrying here in her forearm. So this is a high performing gilt who looks solid in her build. She's well built and she's really pretty stout and powerful. That's something else I can add about her. She's a really stout and powerful gilt with really big feet and coming down at the ground with a really big bone. Okay. Then as I evaluate her a little bit further, thinking about my female priorities, this is she's another really deep ribbed, really soft sided girl. She probably has more rib than the gilt ahead of her. I mean, overall, I think this is a really good one. This is definitely one that in my mind could go hang some banners and be really productive as a sow as well, moving on forward into the production setting. Okay, so I like a lot of things about her. She's big, she's large outline, she's well built, big bone, real wide, plenty of rib to her. So probably going to be a little bit more of a top pair kind of gal if I had to guess. I like this one. Okay, rolling here into this one. Okay. First and foremost, the thing that jumps out at me is this is probably the longest necked, most feminine gilt we've looked at yet. Okay. Now, I want my females to still look like females and look pretty. This girl is real pretty, real long necked, real tall shouldered. She looks like she's got a pretty good, easy level build. Really appreciate that about her. Coming at the ground, looks like she's got some good structure and will be able to move out and move good. She's maybe not as big footed and maybe not as stout as the gilt ahead of her, but that's a really pretty one who's got a good skeleton on her and she's got a good deep rib. Okay. She's got some really good pieces to her. I like a lot of things about her. All right. So again, one that I think is really tall shouldered and really good in her build. She's flexible and she gets out and moves. She gives you a really pretty up-headed look and offers plenty of body shape and capacity there. All right, so some good things about this one as well. Now rolling here into my fourth one. Okay, so again, when we talk about IDs and pigs, now I didn't bring anything up earlier because they were all kind of looking pretty well the same of just, the black pig with the white belt. Okay. This one's a little different. Unfortunately, it's not the other side of her, but you can see this one. She has a black leg down here. Okay. Remember, their front legs are supposed to be white. So I can tell you with confidence, this right here is what we call an off-belted pig. Okay. We didn't really have those in the market hogs, but this is what we would call an off-belted pig. So when you talk this one in your reasons or describe it to your coach, you're going to say, well, the off-belted gilt, that's this girl right here. Okay. Now, one thing that I'm going to notice about this one, she too is big in proportion. She's a big gilt. She's got plenty of size, lots of performance. She's got a real long level top. But as I look at her here at the ground, what do you notice about her legs there, guys? Jump in the chat box. What do you notice there about her legs? Good, bad? What do we notice? What are we seeing on that one? Setting at her front legs and her back legs. If you would imagine that one out on the move, what's she looking like for you? Very good. Posty, right? She's real posty-legged. She's very, very straight. All those things are true. As you study this girl, there's some things you can appreciate. She's got some size, got some performance. But at the end of the day, if we're going to put these girls out on kind of a harder surface, it's going to be a little bit tougher. They're on concrete and whatnot. I'm a lot concerned about how straight-legged she is, okay? She's a bit too extreme in her structure of how straight she is there on both ends, okay? And another way we can look at this too is you notice how much she stoops down there from her hip back to her tail head. Okay, a lot of time in the hog world, we'll talk about judges will say, need just one that needs to be cranked up in her tail head right here. What that means is you're cranking her up so that way her top, she's going to be a little bit leveler all the way through. I'm going to be better built there from behind. Okay. So again, that's just kind of where she's at. She's struggling a little in that aspect. But some things to appreciate. This girl's got some depth of rim. She's got some size and performance. She's still got a pretty long neck, looking pretty feminine up front. Okay, so this off-belted gilt, for me, she's just kind of got a structural issue. Okay, as I'm really studying her through. But remember, we got to factor in the entire animal. Okay, whole animal. So I'll go through them again. Sorry, guys, I don't have them all together. I promise I'll have them all together someday. The day got away from me. So again, this is number one. Okay. Talked about her having some good pieces and maybe some things we change.
Rylan, the one thing that sticks out to me on this one, and I don't know if you talked about it at all, is to me her legs look awful sickled and awful weak in those past turns.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Thank you, Brian. Good thing to bring up when we talk about pig structure. And as far as their ability to really stay solid and be able to continue to move and be able to walk. Again, we talk about their past turns right down there and kind of that ankle, making sure that they're strong. Now, I don't want my pigs to be walking around up on their toes or anything, but I want them to be strong and built because as they get weaker on their past turns, their legs are just going to start giving out more and more. And they're almost going to start be walking on kind of their wrist, you could say. And that I can tell you right now, if you got on the ground on all fours and try to walk on your wrist, it's not going to feel great. Okay. So absolutely. So she's just kind of weaker. And I mentioned she was maybe a little bit looser there, maybe a little too loose in how she's put together through her legs. Okay. A little bit too much curvature there. But again, one is just a little bit too loose there in her pasterns for me. Okay. A little bit loose in her leg. But again, a lot of things we like about that one. Okay. All right. Then we look at number two again. Take your final notes, make some final thoughts about her. Big outline gal, really high performing, got a lot of rib, a lot of body, a lot of capacity, coming down with a real big foot and bone. And if you look at this one real close, she looks a little bit looser, a little bit weaker on her pastern, but again, study him as a whole there, folks. Okay. Someone jumped in and said, talking about their cannon bones. Yes. That's another thing to think about too when they talk about their structure and their build. So yes, she's a little bit shorter in her cannon. If you can see my cursor here, what I'm talking about is that bone right there. So in pigs especially, we can really help ourselves to determine, and get a good idea of how big they're going to finish out by the length of their cannon bone. Okay, so a lot of times if they're shorter cannon, they're usually going to be a little more moderate, a little bit smaller. Okay. But again, that's her. Number two. Here's number three. Again, one who's kind of a look gal. She's got some look. She's really centered up front. Real tall at the point of her shoulder. Still got some good pieces. Okay. Again, got some hip. Kind of thinking about her, rocking and rolling. And then number four. Yes, someone has a question. Go for it, Janae.
Hi, I have a question.
What do you got? What's
One
your...
of
Yep.
I have two pigs, and one of my pigs ain't letting my Duroc ain't letting the other one eat.
Okay. Why don't we talk about this at the end of the class today, okay? I'm happy to answer that question, but let's hold on to that until after we're done judging and everything, all right?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead and start getting those placings in to rock and roll. Okay, got lots of questions, lots of answers coming in. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start talking through the class. So remember, when I'm talking through the class, I'm talking about it like a judge would, that's going to judge a livestock show. So for me, I think there's a pair of really high quality females that have two things that really stand out for them a little bit in different categories. For me, I actually prefer just the really large outline, high performing gilt in number 2. I think that's a really cool made gilt who's really stout and opened up. I appreciate the amount of dimension that she's carrying from end to end. And setting her as a true, genuine female, I think that one's got an incredible amount of capacity there through her rib. I think she's got plenty of curvature to the top side. I think that's a really good underline, well-built female who's still coming at the ground with a really big foot and bone. In addition to that, just really well built in her structure, really square and opened up from end to end. And I just think she's going to be the most productive and offer the most diversity for a producer on down the line. Following it up, I think it's a pretty clear choice for me to choose the really flashy one in 3. For me, 3's a really tall shouldered, really up-headed kind of female who just really gives you a really neat look. I think this is one that just needs more time on down the road to really bloom out and blossom, to really get herself to reach her full potential, get her to that size and capacity there, the gilt ahead of her. And I think she's got a run to make it to win the class. But again, a really well-built female, just maybe didn't quite have as much dimension and a much to her on comparison to the one behind her. Coming up back, I think there's a pair of females that I think definitely offer some give and take. One female's got a bit more size and performance to her. The other one's got, maybe a little bit more of a flashier look and a little bit more dimension there. And for me, I feel more comfortable going with the one gilt. That's one who I think isn't perfect in her structure, but I think one that's a lot looser and a lot more comfortable. And you can argue with me all day long that she's a little bit too comfortable, getting a little weak on their pasterns, especially there in the rear. But again, one that I think is just carrying more curvature from end to end. I think she's just simply more opened up on one who just offers a better build overall and just offers more quality as far as the pair goes. Rounding it out again, I think a gilt who's got a lot of size. But for me, after that, she just gets kind of plain. She does offer some rib shape or some rib depth and everything. But for me, again, one who just gets a little too rounded out of her hip and put her on the move. That's a gilt that I think is just really too straight off both ends of her skeleton. We need to set her back there in her blade just to get her out striding out a lot more comfortable and a lot easier to be a little bit freer moving and to have more success as a productive female. Okay, so again, these gilts, I think a lot of folks found the pairs for sure. I think you've got a really cool one, really, really pretty one. And if you want to argue you like number 3, I can get that. But for me, I think 2 is just the most solid, best one across the board. Okay, so 2's going to start you. All right, and then it's going to be followed by 3. And then 1 is third, 4 going last. And it cuts you 3, 3, and 5. All right. So again, 2, 3, 1, 4. It's 2 a market gilt. 3 is a breeding gilt. Yes. I would agree with that. A little bit there. 2 being a market gilt, 3 being a breeding gilt. But at the same time, with the whole market versus breeding thing, I think a lot of the time folks I think we blur the lines a little too much. For me, I think this one could be really productive both ways, being a productive female as well as being a market hog. And that's okay. Sometimes gilts are just built that way. We've got one in the barn that's definitely the way we're kind of feeding her. We're not really sure which way we're going to go with her, but she's one that I definitely think we could go either way with. So not always a bad thing, but very good. So again, going to be 2, 3, 1, 4, cuts of 3, 3, and 5. So clearly we had to put 4 bottom. All right. Stop sharing my screen. Anyone have any questions about that class? Feeling good, ready to move on? Anything we want to address? Okay, we're going to dive right on into the next one. Okay, so one of my favorite breeds, is the Durocs. Okay, so Durocs are going to be red with droopy ears. And there's people, I feel like it's always either Durocs, everyone, like, you love them or you hate them. I don't feel like there's a lot in between, but we're going to go ahead and roll on into studying some Durocs here. Duroc gilts. Okay. Here we go. So, Duroc breeding gilts. Now, remember, these girls are going to be red, gaining a lot of popularity in New York. I'm glad. Good for the Red Hogs. So, again, these are going to be red with droopy ears. Okay. So, here we go. Number one. So again, study her for structure. What's her rib shape like? She's still feminine, or is she carrying a bit too much condition and fat up front? Again, something to notice for me, this girl gets to be a little bit rounder in her top. Okay. A little roached up there in her top line. All right. Got maybe a little bit too much condition here up through her front, through her neck. Just some little things I'm noticing. You're right. She does have a good set of legs up under. I think that's one that's set really well through her hock and there through her knee. I think she's set well. Just, she's just getting a little roachy up there, but I think got some good legs up under. I think that's one that's still going to have some longevity in production. Okay, here we go. Number two. So earlier someone mentioned, market gilt, breeding gilt. I think this is one that you can talk, goes a little bit either way. Yeah, and one I think's real flashy, real cool up through her head and neck, real tall at the point of her shoulder. Something I do want to note, we talk about their hip and everything being long and being level. This one is real short hipped. Okay. She is real short hipped, which is something we're really getting away from. We don't like the short hipped ones. They just offer less product and they don't move as good. But I think that's still a really cool one with some cool pieces. Okay. All right. Number three. Number three, again, I think just a really big outline kind of guru, is big high performing. If you want to make note of her pasterns, getting a little bit weaker here, I definitely would agree with that. But I think she's also got some cool pieces, real long extended neck, real big full rib shape. Got some width and dimension here from behind. Okay, number four. Yep, this one definitely is weak pastern again. We're really doing a good job of noticing that. Be careful though, just to make sure that you notice, study the animal as a whole. Okay. Study them as a whole. Because again, this one's super level, really cool about her head and neck, got lots of width and dimension, really, really powerful there from behind. Okay, I'll go through them all through again. So I got 1, got number 2, number 3, number 4. Okay, got people starting to roll their placings in. Mark your cards, as they say in a contest. Mark your cards. All right, so on this one, I'm gonna go ahead and have people kind of talk me through a little bit. So would anyone like to talk about this first guilt here? I want you guys to spend some time talking through them. Talk me through this first guilt here. Anyone want to give it a go? I'll guide you through. You just kind of got to tell me what you see, good and bad.
She's a decent made gilt. She's got good set to either side of her skeleton. One that gets a little bit shorter, coarser necked, maybe touch over condition. She gets up in her top, maybe one I'd like to see a little bit more depth on.
Okay, very good. See, guys, that's all it takes. Absolutely right. When you talk about this one guilt, like they mentioned exactly right. You know, this is one that's maybe a bit too heavy in her condition. When we talk about that, she's carrying a lot of extra chuff and a lot of extra fat up here and through her neck. Okay. If we're gonna have some condition, I'd like it to fill in a little bit easier here in her flank. Again, one that I think's got the fundamental pieces of, you know, she's built pretty good at the ground. One who I think just then kind of falls off there and gets a little too up in her top. Roach is out there, and for me, she's really plain in her rib shape. She's really flat. Okay, she doesn't really have any shape. You can kind of see it just goes just straight down, right? She doesn't have any real shape or real curvature there to her rib. So she's got some pieces that I don't really like. All right, and I'll be the first to admit, when I saw that, when you see this class as a whole, I pretty quickly throw this one to the bottom. Okay, number one's going to have to go to the bottom, going to be in the 4 hole pretty quick. All right. I think, again, we have some good fundamentals, but when it comes to the other ones in this class, we just really struggle to really get things rocking and rolling for her. Okay. All right. My kiddo asking about feed. Again, we can talk about that after we're done judging the classes today. Okay. I'm more than happy to stay on with you a little bit afterwards. Awesome. All right. Very good. So again, one, she's got to go bottom, guys. She's got to go bottom. She's got to go bottom pretty quick. She just doesn't have all the right things rocking and rolling for her. She's, again, got some good fundamentals, but unfortunately, she ran into some real heaters. Okay? All right, here we go. So, moving on to the next pick. Number 2, who wants to talk 2? Who wants to talk 2? Again, doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be a lot. All right, go ahead, kiddo.
Go ahead and unmute, Janae. Some of you older ones, before I call you out, I know you. Let's talk some of them.
Come on, guys, we can do it. It's part of being here.
This is a really stout made gilt, one that's extended in her front end, sits down on big feet and legs. One that maybe wants to get a little bit shorter about her, what would you call that, a loin. But I read her to be busted open and good throughout. I would call her sound enough. Maybe
Okay.
one that's a little bit shorter about her cannon bone.
Good. You guys got some good terminology and stuff you're talking. Absolutely. So this one, first thing I'm gonna look at this one. This one is a real short-bodied, real compact kind of gal. Okay, so she's real short-bodied and real short-backed. And when we talk bears and kind of the things that we're working towards as a show industry, that's absolutely one that I think definitely we talk about, real short-backed, real freaky fronted. She's got all those pieces, okay? Short-backed, real tall at the point of her shoulder, lots of extension up there through her head and her neck. When you study this one at the ground, I think she gets a little bit extreme in her skeletal build. I think she needs to be set back a little bit there in her blade here in her shoulder. You can kind of see how she comes down up, kind of up here on the tip of her toes. It gets a little bit too short hipped for me as well. She's carrying some good pieces and got some width on dimension there, but one who I think just needs to really be extended out and be pulled apart more. Someone asked, is short backed good? So here's what I'll tell you. The swine industry is terrible, especially the show pig deal, about bouncing back and forth between traits. We wanted them really long, really lean. We wanted them really tall. Then we wanted them really short. We wanted them really fat. We just go from extreme to extreme. For me, I think short backed is a cool thing. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't say it's the right choice or the best choice. But I'm not saying it's a bad choice either. So when we talk about trendy ones, which is not something as a guy who's worked with a lot of kids helping them find their hogs, finding the trendy ones is that's not my ordeal. It's not my MO. I'm not chasing trends. I'm looking for solid, well-built, complete hogs. For me, I think this one is kind of a trendier kind of gal fitting those pieces. So you got to ask yourself, is she complete enough? And I heard the young person that jumped on there a little bit and talked about, is she sound enough? She's got enough of this. So again, we've got some cool pieces, but does she get out and motor just right? Or is she going to be able to really withstand production setting for a long time? Okay, so very good. All right, now here looking at number 3. Okay, so we're going to hop on and talk about this one because she's very different than the gilt we just looked at.
Go ahead, Liv. She has good rib. She has good rib, nice legs, a really nice top line, and I really like her a lot.
Good. Is there anything you would change about her? Anything you don't like?
Well, I don't know a lot about pigs, so I wouldn't know what to change on her.
That's okay. I appreciate the honesty. Nice job, kiddo. All right, so as we kind of break this girl down, she's similar built in SARS, just her frame on her just kind of volume that she's carrying throughout on comparison to that Hampshire gilt that won the last class. Now, that doesn't mean she wins the class right away, okay? We can't change it and say, oh, well, that one kind of won the last class. Da da da. Absolutely right. This is a practical and one that I would even argue to say is a very functional female. This is a gilt that's going to be able to go into production setting and be successful. Okay. She's going to lay down. She can make some show pigs. She can make just some feeder hogs, commercial type pigs that are just going to be used to grow fast, get big, and rock and roll. Okay. This one's got she's got a long cannon bone. To no surprise, she's a really tall outline, big outline female, really carrying a lot of performance to her. Got the basic fundamentals. She's really deep sided. She's got good legs. She's built right. Good there about her head and her neck, long level kind of female. What she runs into is she's maybe not the flashiest. She's maybe not the coolest. Now, if I'm going to breed some hogs, I like this kind because for me, that's one that's going to be very good as far as how she's going to make it on down the line. And absolutely right, Madeline. Okay, 2 and 4. Okay, later maturing. So we're talking about later maturing. We're talking about 2. Okay. Later maturing than 2 and 4. Yes. Now I understand. Yes. Definitely going to be later maturing. So again, going to be a bigger, taller female who's just going to go off and be able to be a lot more productive than maybe some other pigs that are a little real shorty, real squatty, stuff like that. Okay. I think that's just a really neat one. And I like a lot of pieces about her. I think she maybe isn't quite as flashy or as cool as others, but I think that again, that's one that's got some really good functional, solid pieces to her. All right. And then number 4, a lot of folks like this one. So who wants to jump on and talk about this one? And Brian, I know your kids' names are on here, so I mean, feel free to call them out.
I did text my son that's on here. I said, it's your turn. I don't know if he'll do it.
All right. Looks like Elsie, go ahead.
So I think this is a super showy pig. She catches your eye with a nice level top. Comes down on a good set to her feet and legs, plenty of bone. Maybe it's a little soft in her pasterns, but still got a good structure to her. She's got plenty of depth and rib to her, adequate amount of muscle for a female, and still gives you that good feminine look up front. Pretty well complete, high-performing pig.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly right. Yep. So again, very much a show gilt. This is one that I think, you talk about, you look at the back, she hung a banner here at Houston and stuff. But again, one that's definitely a show gilt. She's going to go on to be what I would call a barrow generator. Okay, real short back, real tall at the point of her shoulder, real trendy, real cool looking. Comes to the ground with a big old foot and bone. I think she's carrying a lot of neat pieces. In addition to that, she's got some basic some fundamentals there as far as how she's put together of being soft-sided, having a lot of rib and capacity there, carrying I think quite a bit of power and dimension there from behind. Someone mentioned there in the comments talking about her upturned vulva. That's true. That is something to factor in. I think that's a little bit advanced kind of for us here. And a lot of time in a contest they'll tell you, consider underlines in a vulva sound. So basically what that means is there are parts that make them, a true female. So having their teats and everything. A lot of time we'll check the underlines on pigs and make sure that their vulvas are not necessarily upturned because that just makes it a lot more difficult to breed them. So that's kind of some stuff that we could definitely talk about, in the future if we did an advanced session and stuff like that. But again, I think one that's just really got some really cool pieces, really in addition to, being a functional, well-made female. She's also one who just gives you a really soggy, broody look and has a lot of show features to her. Okay. So very good. All right. Go and get your final placings down. Get them there in the chat if you haven't already, which we already did. Okay. So here's what I'm going to tell you. This is the officials on the class. 4-2-3-1. Okay. That's a 4, 3, and 5. Now, there's going to be some people that get hurt on this class, and I'm going to talk through it a little bit here and explain. Okay? sometimes in a judging class, it's a safer option to leave the ones that are the similar in type and kind together. So this girl here, I think we all, for the most part, agree that's a really cool, well-built pig. Well, the one that is the most similar to her is going to be this gal. Now, I've said that, and that's turned around and bit me in the butt. Okay. And then this one went third with a huge cut and stuff like that. But as far as type and kind, again, this is another short backed one that's real cool looking, real tall at the point of her shoulder, stuff like that. But as you guys heard me talk this gal earlier, I like this pig. I like this pig a whole lot. I think, again, she's super functional, really practical. She is my kind as far as getting a female to just put her into production. I want this one, and I want number 4. I think 4 is super showy, really cool. There's not going to be a lot of things I'm looking for in a board to really worry about fixing her. I just want her to maintain. This gal, I know I can put a real stout, real extreme maid fella on her, and she's going to lay down and have some wicked cool pigs that are also going to have plenty of good features as far as their practicality and how functional they are. Okay. So again, it's kind of a toss up with those two, with, where you want to do it. Do you want to keep her together? Do you want to be like, you know what? No, I'm definitely think this one deserves to go in the number 2 hole. As a coach, I wouldn't argue with you. Okay. But again, they do the officials. They go 4, 2, 3, 1. Okay. The biggest thing for me that you've got to do is find one to go bottom. And we mentioned that from the get-go. Okay. This is one that I think, she's cool. She's got some pieces, but that's just overall, as far as a complete female, she just doesn't have what's going on. She's what we call kind of a PC guild. Okay. Or PC kind of livestock. Again, this one's super cool fronted, really trendy, really neat. Again, there's some things you'd change about her. You'd extend her out there in her hip. Get her to set down a little easier, with a little more ease there on her front wheels. Set her back in her blade a little bit. Again, 3, super cool in the sense of just a really practical, really sound made, functional female. But as with shows I've been to, love them, but a lot of folks will go ahead and choose the cooler, flashier ones and kind of put this girl middle of the road. They don't really talk a lot of bad things about her, but just not quite up to par, and quite as much of a smoke show as maybe some other pigs. And then this girl, she just checks all the boxes. Okay. She's the most complete. She carries that practicality and that functional design and build, in addition to carrying some width and power that she's going to pass on to future generations of progeny, and is still a super feminine and cool pig that can motor around good. So she just kind of got it all going on. Okay. What do we think about the Durocs? Anyone have anything they want to say or mention, or any questions they have with some of the stuff we talked about?
I would say they're very different. Like those pigs were very different, right? All the way through. There was some difference in there. And I think looking at that class, you could find a top one and a bottom one pretty easily. Right. I struggled with the middle pair. I agreed with you, Rylan, more than that. But I also see the fact that you had those number 2 and 4 were much closer in a pair as far as type than 2, 3, and 4.
Yep. That's exactly right. And Madeline, I'm gonna have to disagree. I'm a purebred guy through and through. I'm a pig guy and I'm a purebred guy. Crosses are a dime a dozen. I just don't have any crossbred goat classes put together tonight. But yeah. The floppy ears, is it a dominant gene? I'm gonna be honest, I've been told multiple things of yes and then no. I've seen folks breed a floppy-eared pig with an erect-eared pig, and they get a litter of erect-eared pigs. Or they get a litter of half floppy, kind of like halfway down, kind of bouncing in the middle. So it's kind of hard to say whether it's dominant or not. I can't say that I've had enough experience breeding floppy-eared pigs with erect-eared pigs, but that's also a line I usually don't cross. I kind of like my purebreds to stay pure. If it's going to be a cross, it's probably going to be at least half or, excuse me, a quarter pure. So again, you can tell I feel very strongly about my pures. I just like them. I think they're more consistent. So, all right, here we go. Let's roll into another class here. Okay, exit out of that one. Okay. We're gonna look at we're gonna look at this one. Yes. Okay. We are gonna look at this one. So we got some Yorkshire Gilts. All right. And these are what we consider performance Yorkshire Gilts. Okay. Performance Yorkshire Gilts. So when I say performance, what that means is this. We're going to be given a situation. Okay. And we're being given some data. Now, to read the data initially, the first thing you got to recognize is coming across the rows here. I've got number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Okay, so with all of that, we have to really make sure that we listen and we understand about all that matching up with each pig. Okay, so before I do anything, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mental note, and if I have the paper in my hand, I'm going to draw an arrow. Okay, so these things, these words mean a little bit kind of different. Okay, so the first one here in hogs is we have days. Okay, what this means is how many days it took that pig to reach a certain weight. And this is something that you want to have low. So we want to have our days low. So the first thing I'm going to make note, I may write here on 1, 2, 3, 4 in my notes I have set up. I may say number one had the best days. Okay. Because what that means is number 1 got to the specific weight the fastest. And then number 3 was the slowest. So number 3 had the worst days.
All right, then when you talk about weight, is there a standard weight, or is it just a weight that they decided for this?
I believe it's a standard weight. I'm actually looking at an actual set of pedigree papers here with data as well. And I think it depends. Yes, days to 250. That's what it is. Yes, the days that it took for them to reach 250 pounds. So yes, thank you for asking that. And I think it depends maybe a little bit for each breed on what it is, but I think most of the time it's days to 250. Okay, so then we've got BF. All right, so BF is going to be back fat. Okay, back fat is how lean the pig is. So we want the pig to be nice and lean. So right now I'm seeing 4 has the best back fat. Okay, 4 has is the leanest and has the best back fat. And then number 3 has, or sorry, number 2 has the worst. Okay, number 2 has the worst. So what I would do if I had this paper, I would circle the ones I like and square the ones I don't. So right here, I'm going to circle 4 for back fat, and I'm going to square number 2. Okay, then I go to LEA. All right, LEA is going to be loin eye area. Okay, so when you talk about a pork chop, we want big pork chops, right? Because big pork chops mean more meat, and we like to eat our meat. So then we're going to look at our loin eye area. So the gilt that's got the biggest top is going to be number 2. Okay, so number 2, loin eye area goes to the 2 gilt. And then my smallest is number 3. Okay, so I've made note. I've already made, what, 2 squares on number 3? Probably not doing so hot for number 3 right now. We don't like that. And I've made, yeah, okay. Then I talk about TSI, all right? We've got 2 big words we talk about in the livestock industry. We've got terminal, which refers to the sire or the dad. And then we have maternal, which refers to the mother, the mom, okay, the dam. So we've got TSI, terminal sire index. And keep in mind, terminal sire index and maternal line index, which is going to be the next one, those are developed based on data of like how many pigs were born, how many pigs were weaned, and then like that's maternal, and then like TSI is gonna be like back fat, days, and then like loin eye area, that kind of stuff. Okay, so the terminal traits refer to the meat. So looking here, I want TSI to be high. So I'm looking at number 4. Number 4 has high TSI. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Number 2. Oops. Number 2 is my best for TSI. Okay, I'm going to circle number 2. And number 3 is my worst for TSI. Okay, number 3's just got real low TSI, which makes sense because their days were bad and their loin eye was bad. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about maternal line index. Okay. So how on paper, how good they are as a mama. Well, this gal here at number 1, she's going to be the highest for maternal line index. Okay. She's got some good mama data. And number 4 is low. Bless me. All right. Okay, so I have all that information down. So when I'm looking at it, I know according to the paper, according to the data, number 1 has 2 positives. Number 2, sorry, number 2 has 2 positives, 1 negative. Number 3 has 3 negatives. And number 4 has a positive and negative. So based on that, in the chat box, guys, tell me already, who do we know is probably going to be the worst pig? Based entirely on the numbers, who do we know is going to be the worst pig without reading the situation or anything like that? Number 3. Good. So we can pretty quickly go ahead and make a spot for number 3 on our paper in pencil, not pen, because if we have the worst papered pig, that's honestly the best animal in the class, which like doesn't usually happen, we may have to move them up. But already we know number 3's probably not great. Is there one in particular we feel like is maybe going to be towards the top? One in particular I think maybe is going to be towards the top or going to be number 1. Okay, good. So I've got people saying number 1 is probably going to be the best. Number 3 is probably going to be the worst. Okay, so again, in pencil, okay, and I always write it on my data sheet, my paper here. I write down my kind of placing going into looking at the animals. All right, so here we go. Then we got to read the situation here. It says, rank these gilts as they would be selected as replacements in a show pig operation in the Midwest that heavily uses AI in their herd. So what that means is these pigs are going to be in the Midwest, and they're going to be getting artificial insemination. So they're going to get semen from boars pretty well wherever, all throughout the country, okay, to use on their sows. So they can really handpick what they want for this and that to kind of use traits and match those breedings up. They're not necessarily just going to put one boar out there and just be like, all right, he's going to cover them all, okay? So they can really handpick. This operation's main income comes from the sale of purebred barrows and gilts to 4-H and FFA exhibitors all over the nation. So what that tells me, these girls better be pretty. Okay, they better be good looking. Strong emphasis is placed on top production, or on gilt production. Top end gilts are either retained in the herd or marketed at national type conferences to generate additional income and build herd reputation. Essentially what that means is the best gilts are going to be kept. So say you have 4 really, really, really good gilts in a litter. We're going to keep 2 of them back at the farm and we're going to show 2 of them and sell them at a big national show. All right, to build up our reputation. So that tells me maternal things are really important. So now I'm going to go through, I'm going to circle MLI. Okay, that's really important. That is a big one. Okay, and they got to be pretty. So we didn't have to put a lot of emphasis on the rest of the more terminal traits out here, but MLI is important. We already know number 1 has the best MLI. Well, on paper, we like MLI the best, or we like number 1 on the best. So we're kind of here looking at 2 and 3. Well, let's see if the pigs match the paper. Looking at number 1. All right, first thing I see, that is a good built female. Okay, she's got some good pieces, really long bodied, really nice looking Yorkshire who's got some rib and some capacity. I wish she'd come at the ground a bit stouter there and maybe be a little bit cleaner there up through her head and neck. But again, I think one who's got some good pieces to her. Exactly right, Madeline. This is one that I think needs to come at the ground with a stouter foot and bigger paw. Just really make that one just stouter there at the ground. But again, I think for a female, she's got some really neat pieces and got some things I really like. All right, so again, make note of some of that stuff of, hey, she's got some good pieces. She's super cool. I see you, Casey. Toadette has bigger feet though, okay? But again, long-bodied, good-looking, got some ribbon capacity, all right? Definitely gonna need to have some bigger feet though. Okay, number 2. Number 2 is fat. And, yes, we can have a little more condition on our gilts here, but this girl is fat, okay? She's real fat. She's really, really weak in her front pasterns there, okay? One I think I'm kind of struggling with a little bit there in that sense of, she's just real weak pastern. She's really carrying a lot of extra condition. She's got lots and lots of rib and body. That's awesome. She's got some expression up high, which tells me she's got some good loini, which makes sense because she was the highest as far as the size of her loini. But yes, she is a short cannon kind of gal who's just probably not going to max out as a very enormous, as a real tall framed and high performing kind of gal. Okay. So again, got some things we can appreciate. And she also has the highest TSI. Okay. So she's got some good loini, got high TSI, but then also notice she was the lowest in back fat. Well, that makes sense because that's probably easily the fattest pig we've seen in a little while. Okay. So again, just some notes on that one. She's really weak pastern, really weak there at her knee, got carrying way too much condition, but she's got some top, and she's got some power, but she's really, really, we need to peel back. What I like to say is peel the bark off that one a little bit. Okay. Okay, here we go. Number 3. Oh my. So on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we've got a really, really lean one. Okay. She's really lean. She's really long, but that is a frail boned, straight-legged kind of gal. I have concerns. I don't like her from a physical standpoint. And I look at my notes on paper. Ooh, yep. She had the worst data in 3 different categories. We already threw her 3rd. Already, I'm kind of thinking, yeah, looking at her in person, that's probably a solid place to keep her. They're in the 4 spot. Okay. They're in the bottom. That's just kind of a rough looking pig on paper. Rough looking girl. Yeah. Rough on paper and matches her data. Data matches her pretty good in person. Okay. And round out looking at number 4. Well, again, 4 had really good back fat. So she's really lean, but she doesn't have really great maternal qualities. Okay. Which makes sense. That's not really built so much like a female. That's built a lot more so like a bear that we want to eat. Okay, she's really kind of harder doing, a lot shallower there through her rib, coming down to the ground. I wouldn't say any of these girls were super stout-footed, maybe number 2. But again, there were some things I couldn't look past with that one. So again, I think one that's kind of struggling a little bit there for a lot of different things. We said the same thing about 3. So looking at stuff there, we got to ask ourselves, does the paper match the pigs? For me, 1000%, the paper matches the pigs. I definitely think number 1 has some good things going on paper, and we talked about some good things there in person. Okay. Number 2 had some good things going for her, but maybe just kind of struggle a little bit there through some terminal traits. But let's remember, we're searching for some good females. Well, she had some good terminal traits and was carrying a lot of fat. Number 3, remember, we didn't like her at all on paper. And I'm really going to struggle if you like that one a lot in person. Okay. Then number 4, we're kind of there. We got some good, some bad, but maybe a little more terminal than she is maternal. So I'm going to run to the bathroom really quick, but you guys go ahead and start putting your placings in, and I will be right back. All right. Got folks with all their placing in. So here we go. Again, on paper, we certainly like number 1 the best. We like 3 the worst. Some we kind of go down and study the 2 in the middle. It's kind of a crapshoot. Well, no, not really. I think there's a pretty logical place. I'm looking at the data again. There's a pretty logical place. Sorry. To kind of lean a little bit more there. Maybe not so much on the paper, but as you study them in person, you really study number 1. That's a really complete made female who's got a lot of neat pieces going for her. Sure, there's things I'd change, but from a structural and standpoint and functionality, that's a female I can just really get behind. Love the width and extension on that one. Just wish she came at the ground a bit stouter and a little bit more so there at the ground. But get the right kind of bore on her, and she's going to go on and make some really, really cool and productive pigs. In addition to that, she also has the best data of the class by far and away. Coming up here, looking at number 2, I think this is, again, one that's got some capacity, got some things that we appreciate from a terminal standpoint on paper. She's definitely got the best data as far as her terminal index goes. And looking at her loin eye area, this is one that I think kind of contradicts herself a little bit with the amount of back fat she's carrying. She looks real expressive there when you see her in person, but her data reads different. But that's one that I think is a kind of a logical place to go second. She's one that I think, again, got some body, some capacity. I question her structural integrity there in the long run, but short gain, I think that's going to be one that's still going to be productive and be able to be profitable for a producer on down the line. Coming up here, I think we round with a logical 3rd place in 4. One that I think, again, you can definitely admit is a real terminal in our type. One who I definitely think is going to be more productive going to the rail than being a female put out into production. One that's just a bit straight there up through her front and rear wheels and just kind of carries a really lean carcass from end to end. One who, again, I appreciate for certain aspects, but she's going to need more time just to soften up and have a lot more fat added to her diet to make her more productive and more successful there in the long run. But again, I think one that carries some good features and some good characteristics, but just can't really see her from a maternal standpoint being that productive and that successful. Coming back, we talked about 3 on paper. That's one that I think really struggles. She's got the worst data of the class, and it really matches her as you study her in person. I think you can appreciate that one for being long and level, but that's about where it stops for me. She's too shallow and too uptight there up through her flank and up there through her flank and her rib. Comes at the ground with a real frail set of feet and bone. Just one that I think you just need to really blow apart, open up, and just stouten her up from end to end. So for me, this is just one that I think is a very comfortable place to round out the class. So the officials for the class would go, sorry, that should be there. 1, 2, 4, 3. And I cut you 4, 2, and 4. Okay. Again, officials are 1, 2, 4, 3, catch of 4, 2, and 4. And remember, our cuts are kind of telling you the difficulty between the classes as far as breaking the pairs. And so again, you notice it's a really low cut on the middle pair. And the reason for that is because one could argue, hey, I like this more structural correctness of that really lean made gilt. I don't mind that as much. I really, really struggle with the really soft and wheat pastern gal there. And it was number 2. But I'm thinking more so from a capacity and just overall longevity standpoint as far as her build and volume. 2's just got some better pieces to her. I don't love her, but got some better pieces. All right, and we got some more questions on data or how any of that worked out. For me, I think data usually helps a lot as far as but you got to make sure you understand and know what the terms mean, because without that, you're going to be real lost. All right, let's move on to our last class for the night. Okay, get out of that. So we've got one more performance class. This one's performance breeding gilts. Okay, performance breeding gilts. All right, so just like we've been doing, I'll kind of walk you through the data a little bit, and then you're going to have to match it up yourself. So looking here, I've got days, which we know that. We want days low, okay, because that means how many days it took them to reach 250. All right, and days low. Back fat, we know we want back fat low. That's important, okay, because that means they're lean. Loin-eye area, we want that high. Okay, you want that high because you got to make sure that that animal is got to have some good data and have some big old pork chops in them. Okay, SPI. SPI is the same thing as MLI. Okay, so SPI was sow productivity index. This is going to be sow productivity index. When in doubt, guys, if it ends in an I, it's an index, and you want it high. Okay, in general, that's like always, you almost always how that works. So an SPI high, TSI high. So again, days low, back fat low, loin-eye high, SPI high, TSI high. Okay, and then down here, the BA, that stands for breed average. Okay, so it's something to really note and make sure you maybe talk about in reasons later on of, this one was really above the breed average or was much better than the breed average and stuff like that. So you notice the breed average here for back fat is 58. This one's super duper awesome in her back fat. This one's a complete opposite. This one's really, really heavy in terms of her back fat. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and read out this situation here, the scenario. Rank these gilts as they should be selected as replacements in a purebred Duroc operation. This producer markets elite breeding stock to other seed stock operations throughout the United States. And basically what that means is they're going to be sending purebred Durocs to other purebred Duroc breeders. The majority of the income is generated by the sale of Duroc boars. Okay, so we know Duroc boars going to be important to have those terminal traits. To commercial producers that utilize white line females and market all offspring on a lean value system. Okay, to elaborate that on a little bit. So the majority of the income comes from boars that go to commercial producers that have white line females. So it means commercial guys. So I'm not saying looks aren't important, but these aren't necessarily needing to have to be the coolest, flashiest, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Good made ones that are going to generate boars that are going to be productive and have nice terminal traits to complement the maternal females who are probably really well built and have some good female traits to them. Okay. SPI is sow productivity index. Again, we want indexes to be high 99% of the time. Eyes are high. Okay. Again, on a lean value system. So back fat, important. And then all hogs on this farm are housed in total confinement. Okay, so again, all the gals in this operation are going to be on concrete. So if you haven't already, go ahead and start making your notes on the data. LEA is loin eye area. Okay. So in our loin eye area to be nice and big, that's basically how big the pork chops are going to be. So that loin going down the top, which in this case is going to be really important because these pigs are on a lean value system. So low back fat, high loin eye area. Think about which ones are going to circle, which ones are going to square. And again, pencil in your placing on this once you kind of have an idea based on the paper. Okay. Once you have the paper, pencil in what you're going to have going for you. And sometimes you get in this class, so 2 and 4 are the same on TSI. So just maybe make a note, hey, they're the same. Or just call them both the lowest. I mean, they're breed average, so it's not the worst, but. Okay, so I hope on paper you already have a pretty good idea of where you're at and what you're going to do. If you don't have a complete set, placing, make sure you got a pretty good idea of where you want to be. Okay, here we go. Let's look at them in person. Let's look at them. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Yes, I know she looks familiar. Number 4. Okay, I'll go through them all again. 1. 2. 3. 4. Okay, go ahead and get those placings in. Okay. Got some people giving each other some claps there for their placings. Okay, so let's talk about it. When I look at the data here, okay, I'm like, all right, on paper, one clean sweeps it. One has the best terminal data. One has the best days. One has the best loini. One has the best TSI. Okay, one has the best data all the way, all day, all night. Okay. 4 has the worst data in about every category but back fat. But back fat is only going to go so far. I get it. It's a lean value system, but back fat is great. The rest of it, we're really, really struggling. Okay. So I know 4 is going to go bottom. And on paper, I'm like, cool. 1's going to go on top. Let's look at them in person. And then I think 3 goes third and 2 goes, or 3 goes second, 2 goes third. This is all on paper. This is not the official. This is just all on paper. All right. So here we go. Now I start studying and breaking them down. When I look at 1, okay, I think 1's super long, really functional. Appreciate a lot of things about her. Looks like she's real wide and open up there in her chest floor. I wish she was a bit softer there in her rib, but I think she's got some really neat pieces. And in addition to that, she's the best numbered gilt in the whole class. Come here to 2. That's a really high performing, a really bold sprung kind of female who's got a lot of rib and depth. But that's kind of where it falls short for me. She's kind of a really, as her data would express, and you see her in person, she's really just a heavy condition kind of female who just doesn't quite have the terminal characteristics I'm really looking for. Number 3. 3 is a gilt that I can get behind a lot from a build standpoint. She's really functional, really correct. And her type and her kind, I really love the depth and dimension this one's carrying through her rib. I think she also carries quite a bit of power. And dimension from behind. She does offer some concerns as far as her structural integrity there at the ground. This is one that just gets a little bit weaker in her pass turns. Rolling here to number 4. Yeah. 4 was really rough on paper, and it really matches her in person. That's just a really lean made, shallow constructed female who's way too upright on her toes. This is one who takes their structure to the extreme, and one who I just really want to relax and blow out in a lot of different areas of her. For me, she definitely matches herself on paper. Definitely one that I think you got to go throw forth really quick. Okay. 4 is definitely one you got to throw to the bottom there, guys. She's super tight, really shallow, really low performing, small frame kind of gilt, who's just not going to do well and not be a productive sow. Okay. Not going to be able to give boars that are going to do a lot of good things for her either. Okay. So for me, 2 is a pretty logical place to go third. Okay. She's big. She's fat. I don't like her, but she's not as bad as the little bitty, skinny, itty bitty thing. So now we come down Is it 1? Is it 3? Is it 1? Is it 3? Does anyone want to, advocate a case for 1? Anyone want to jump on and tell me why 1 should win the class? Hey, Brian, this is where you get your kids to get on it. Hop on and talk about it, Madeline. You've done a good job tonight.
Ryan's like Bestlia, loin eye.
Good. Best Luna area. Well, she's frail made. Okay. But what about 3?
I like 3 better. She's a better built female. Maybe one that gets a little bit weaker about her pastern, but one that brings plenty of depth. She's busted open on either side of her skeleton, and I think she's good on her structure.
And I'm going to be honest, folks. I side with Madeline. I take 3. I get it. 1 is the best on paper. Okay, you can't argue that. But so many times you got to make sure that the animal matches the paper. She could have really good genetics, really good data, but if that animal doesn't physically show those things as well, you need to be cautious about throwing her first just because she's really good on paper. So the officials got to go 3, 1, 2, 4. And it cuts you 2, 7, and 2. So again, it's 3, 1, 2, 4, cuts of 2, 7, and 2. All right. So very good. It is 7:31, so my time is up. You guys are welcome to, I don't think our friend that had questions is still on, but
No, I think she's off.
that's okay. So nice job, guys. Again, I hope you learned a lot. Throwing some data in there is always kind of fun. I think it just gives you more talking points and more things to evaluate and think about. So see you guys next week for breeding ewes and breeding does.
Thank you guys. See you in one more week. We have one more week. I will send this recording out hopefully early the end of this week. Thanks, guys.